Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you this week from the Pontotoc County Free Fair in Ada. We'll tell you why the annual horse show is such a popular event and why it's also considered a family affair a little bit later in the show. But first we're talking summer crops. Here's our new Extension Cropping System Specialist, Josh Lofton. It's been an interesting year, I guess you could say. Talk about it a little bit.
Well, aren't all seasons in Oklahoma interesting?
They are.
We've had quite a change, what the difference a whole year can make. This time last year we were still talking drought and dry conditions and looking at soybeans and our other summer crops just pretty much dying in front of us. This year we've had a tremendous amount of rain, so much rain that some of the crops could do for a break, if you will. And one of those is soybeans. We got started off a little late. Wheat got a little bit off, and most of our soybeans are double crop soybean production systems. So we're going in after wheat harvest, planting soybeans. Those soybeans were planted a little late. They're maturing a little slower, and the rain's kind of just slowing that down as well, kind of helping slow that process.
In terms of the growing season, are there some other challenges too with insects or weeds or things in terms of production that producers can think about?
Yeah, we're getting to be that time in the soybean production system to where we're going to start thinking of a lot of our insect management, a lot of our disease management, and it's really going to just depend on what stage your crop is in, and that's going to tell you whether you can throw in a weed management as well. Some of those later planted soybeans that are behind some of the late wheat that got harvested are still vegetative. We have a lot of weeds out there because of those rainy conditions. A lot of our pre's and a lot of those in-season herbicide programs kind of didn't do as well as we normally see them, and so we got a lot of weeds. So if you're still vegetative, not flowering yet on the soybeans, you have some options there that are available. Otherwise, you're looking for disease. A lot of spots can appear on soybeans. Some of them need a spray, some of them don't need a spray, but the big issue that I'm seeing on the eastern part of the state is some of our insects starting to come in. Stink bugs starting to come in, especially if you got corn that's being harvested nearby. They're moving from that dried down corn into the soybeans, and you start talking about a little bit of earworm problems as well coming in. And so managing those, what we have to start thinking about, especially if you have late soybeans right next to earlier soybeans, is your PHI or your pre-harvest interval. The first thing is always go out and actually check your soybeans. There's no need going out and making an insecticide or a fungicide application if you don't have anything out there. Once you determine there is something out there, check your label to make sure that you're not too close to that harvest for that PHI.
Okay, important information to remember. In terms of weeds, is it too late to treat for weeds in most fields?
Yeah, like we said, beyond those real late planted fields, those double crop weeds or those double crop soybean production systems to where we are vegetative and maybe you're starting to see a flower come out, you probably are a little too late. What we like to see is that, and a lot of those labels go with about R2 to R3, maybe even some of them at that R1 stage usually start to restrict herbicide applications. So once again, check your labels, make sure your weeds are actually at a stage to where you're going to do something. So we usually like to talk about 4 to 6 inch weeds, and so most of the time you're going to have to actually split that canopy open to see those 4 to 6 inch leaves or weeds. So make sure that you're actually going to do something. Make sure you're not too far along, and things will be better.
Okay, terrific. Great advice for soybean producers. Josh, again, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet Weather Report. As we begin September, remember to stay vigilant about watering or irrigating plants. The days will get shorter and the nights will get cooler, but we can still have some high water demand days. On a map of potential water demand for Monday, August 31st for tall plants, we see some high water demands. The lowest draw was just under 0.2 of an inch of water at Broken Bow and Worcester. The highest was a 1/2 inch of water demand at Hobart. Farmers are checking degree day heat units for their crops, hoping we see enough warm days to reach maturity. For cotton planted close to June 1st at Mangum, 1,870 heat units had accumulated by August 31st. Depending on the cotton variety, that leaves between 350 to 700 heat units to go to reach full maturity. Even for a warm day like August 31st, cotton heat units had dropped to less than 20 per day. Soils for much of Oklahoma have fallen into a dry state as we begin September. The brown areas on this map of the percent of plant available water from the surface down to 16 inches were mostly below 20%. Only in the dark green northeast and east central areas were soils at capacity for plant available water. Here's Gary with a look at drought as it creeps back in upon us.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back on SUNUP, and I'm afraid something else is back on SUNUP that we didn't want to see, and that's the U.S. Drought Monitor. As Al showed you last week, drought is starting to expand across southeastern Oklahoma. The Drought Monitor now shows moderate to severe drought starting to spread north and west from far southeastern Oklahoma, and we also have a bit of abnormally dry conditions, that's that yellow color, showing up in far southwestern Oklahoma thanks to the poor soil moisture conditions in that area. I think Al was showing you that earlier. And I'm afraid August was not much help with this flash drought situation. Much of the state saw from 60% to less than 20% of normal rainfall during August. Medill in far south central Oklahoma only had 0.04, and we saw similar totals around all over far southeastern Oklahoma and south central Oklahoma. Now, northeastern Oklahoma and parts of east central Oklahoma did see some pretty good rainfalls that helped eliminate drought or building drought in that area. Now let's look forward for some help. Increased odds of above normal precipitation basically across the northwestern half of the state. I'm afraid southeastern Oklahoma, there is no indication whether you can expect above, below, or even near normal conditions. No real forecast for that area. And that's reflected in the Climate Prediction Center's latest U.S. monthly drought outlook for September. They see that drought in southeastern Oklahoma continuing to persist or possibly intensify through the month of September, with additional spread expected farther to the north and west, just like we showed on the latest U.S. Drought Monitor report. So luckily, we're starting to enter our secondary rainy season as we get later into the fall. We really need that rainfall to put a stop to this flash drought, and also it's going to start getting cooler as well, at least we hope. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
The markets have been under a lot of pressure and volatility lately, and Daryl, what's going on?
Well, most of this is coming from the global scene. A lot of it is related to China. For several months now, there's been some growing uncertainty about what was going on with the Chinese economy. Not so much that it's really got a major problem, but it's probably not going to grow as fast as we had earlier expected. So the Chinese stock market was under volatility early in the summer. Chinese government has recently made some changes in terms of revaluing their currency, changing interest rates, and of course markets on a global scale that are very concerned about what this means about demand from an economy as large as the Chinese economy.
And how does that impact the U.S. economy?
Well, it's come back in the last couple of weeks in the U.S. economy, primarily through the stock market. With all that uncertainty, money starts moving around. Markets are driven by greed, fear, and ego, and at this point in time, fear seems to be the name of the game. And so there's lots of reaction to that uncertainty. It's not a question of what the reality is right now. We're really reacting to the uncertainty, and so we've seen a lot of volatility. It's not that the U.S. economy has any major problems. In fact, we've gotten some very good news recently. In the second quarter, the latest figures show that the U.S. economy grew significantly faster than we earlier thought. So again, it's not a question of the reality here of the economy having problems, but there's a lot of uncertainty about exactly sort of how we land with all of these issues.
So what does that have to do with the cattle markets?
Well, you know, commodity futures markets are tied pretty closely to the stock market. It's a question of where all that money is moving into and out of when things change. So there's an impact there. And we've even seen fairly significant reactions in cattle markets, in cash cattle markets in the last week or two from the initial uncertainty associated with it. You could argue that it shouldn't have an impact on the cash markets. Market fundamentals for cattle haven't changed at all. And you know, and that's the important thing to keep in mind going forward, is that there is that reality that will come back to bear. But you know, emotions know no bounds, and so when the market is scared, that emotion you know, works its way through a lot of markets, and so we're just working through this. We're already seeing the cash market start to stabilize, and it'll take a little more time for the futures market and the stock market to you know, sort of absorb all this and get itself positioned where it's comfortable.
Okay, thanks a lot. Daryl Peel, our Extension Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
There's a new tool for prescribed burners across Oklahoma. And John, tell us about this new app that you have.
Yeah, we've got a new app called RX Burn Tracker. It's available for Apple or Android platforms, so any tablet or phone that operates off those two systems, you can go to their app stores and download it for free, no charge. And so what this app's going to do is, or what we designed it to do, is to help people that conduct burns keep a photographic record of their burns as they go. Because again, you know, land doesn't change overnight. You know, as you look across the landscape of Oklahoma with all the cedars that have increased, that didn't happen overnight. It took many, many years. Right. You know, and we can go back and look at historic photographs and compare them to now, and there's a big change. Well, same thing with land managers. A lot of times we see the land every day, and so we don't notice those subtle changes and stuff. In the same way with fire. So a lot of times it's nice to have a record and say, hey, we started burning this several years ago, and I remember what it looked like, but now we can get pictures. So what it does is you can open the app up. It'll allow you to name a burn unit. So if you've got burn units, you can name that burn unit, then go out and take multiple photographs within that burn unit to keep track of that record of where it's at. You can name those photo points and stuff, and then you can come back later and go back to those same photo points and retake pictures, and it keeps those pictures in chronological order. And then also what it does is it allows you to enter burn data. So whenever you go in and burn it, so you can go in and take pictures prior to you burning. That'd be the best thing. You know, go in, take pictures before you burn, and then go in and burn. And then you can put in the burn data, like the day you burned it, what was the temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, and direction. Just kind of keep you a little record of what the kind of conditions it was when you burned it. And then you can come back, you know, weeks, months, years later, take one set of pictures, multiple set of pictures, you know, time lapse. You know, you may want to come in every month and I want to take pictures and see how things regrow, or I'm going to come back at least every year and take pictures. And it helps you keep a photographic record of what your burn looked like, what it looked like before you burned, what it looks like after you burned, and even period of time after that burn occurred. And to help you get to that point, to get back to those same photo points, what it does, this app enables a ghost image of the previous photograph. So that helps you. So what that ghost image is it brings up a real faded image of the last photograph taken of this spot, and then you can kind of overlay that and line it up pretty much perfectly to take a new picture of the exact same spot. So you're not trying to go out and guess, where was I here a couple of years ago taking this picture, or was I here? It'll help you get to that, right back to that exact spot.
Well, because benchmarks are so important whenever you're trying to make progress, especially in a situation
and
like
that's
this.
exactly right. And again, that's the key point. You want to, if you're going to start records like that, you want to sample, or you want to take photographs of the same spot every time to see the changes. You know, random photographs out there are great, but if you come back and take random every time, you're just not sure what the end results are. But if you have a permanent photo point and you're able to go back to that permanent photo point very simply, it helps you keep a good record of what's going on and how things have changed over time and changed with your burn program and what's going on.
Okay, thank you much, John. And for more information on this and a link, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
This is a year when many spring calving operations are growing a few or perhaps even a few more replacement heifers to build up the cow herd as we come out of the drought. Bred replacement heifers at this time of the year need to be gaining 1 pound to 1.5 pounds per head per day, because we want to shoot towards a proper body condition at calving time next spring. For instance, I want those heifers to be in a body condition score 6 at calving. That'll give us the best chance for that heifer to produce some colostrum for that baby calf's health. Also for that heifer then to recycle and rebreed on time for next year's calf crop. We can keep that heifer gaining throughout the fall and winter months if we've got some decent quality grass hay available to put out for those heifers, or some good quality standing forage, probably by just putting a little bit of extra protein supplement available for those heifers. The first part of winter, I think we can do the job with 2 pounds of a high protein supplement per head per day, something like a 38 to 44% crude protein supplement. As we get into the dead of winter and we start to have lower quality forage available, but just because the grasses are frozen and become dormant, and we have winter stress, colder weather, wetter weather that causes them to utilize more energy, then we need to shift over to a lower protein supplement fed in larger amounts, probably 4 to 5 pounds per head per day, in order to keep those heifers gaining. Now, if we have some wheat pasture available, we can use that as a supplement for those replacement heifers as well, but let's remember to use it as a supplement only, not as the full diet. We've done that here at Oklahoma State University, where we ran heifers on wheat pasture full time, and those bred heifers gained 3 pounds plus per head per day, became too fleshy, and we think that contributed to some additional dystocia or calving difficulty. The way I would use the wheat pasture as a supplement is to allow those heifers to graze it one day and then move them off onto dry pasture 1 or 2 days, and then back to the wheat pasture for that protein supplement again. If you do that, monitor the body condition of these heifers very, very closely. Make sure that they're going to be at or near that body condition score 6 category. Here's an example of a heifer that's on the screen right now that's in a body condition score 6. That's what we're shooting for those heifers to be at calving time. I think if you'll plan out your winter program for these replacement heifers and have them at that target body condition score, you'll have a successful outcome with those heifers next spring and when they rebreed for future calf crops. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Two big things on the minds of wheat producers: crop insurance and what to do with grain that's still in the bin. Kim, let's start with crop insurance and the deadlines to remember.
September 30. Producers have to sign up for crop insurance by September the 30th. Another thing they need to do is make sure that their farm records at both the crop insurance agent's office and the FSA office match, because if those two records don't match, there's a possibility if they have a loss that they won't get paid.
What are the choices in selecting a policy then?
Two major choices: the yield protection policy or the revenue protection. Of course, yield protection is like it sounds, it's just going to protect you against yield loss. The price is going to be set. With revenue protection, you're protected both against yield loss and changes in price. And it's possible for you have a yield loss and prices go up, and that be beneficial and result in a higher payment than just your yield loss policy.
Now, is there anything new that producers might need to take a closer look at this year?
Well, there's a policy or provision called yield exclusion. The USDA came out, and for counties and based on county yields, on low years with county yields, they can drop their yield on their records, and that will raise their guaranteed yield and result in a higher payoff.
Now, I'll be really honest with you, this is a lot to remember and to sort through. What's the best way to figure all of it out and make the right choice?
It's very complicated, and I think the number one choice and the most important choice is your insurance agent. You need to get an agent that knows the policies, that can take your farm records, evaluate each alternative, and show you the potential results of each alternative, and then I think you'll make a better educated decision.
Well, let's weave prices now into this. How does the price outlook weigh into what you've talked about?
Well, you started out with producers with grain in the bin. Naturally, they're wanting higher prices, and they're wondering if prices are going to go up between now and say January 1. On the insurance question, on the yield protection versus revenue protection, are next June prices going to be the same as they are now, or are they going to be different? Because if they're the same, yield protection will work. If they're either higher or lower, they're different, then your revenue protection is probably best.
And now the $64,000 question, what's the price outlook look like?
Well, without explaining why, I look at December 1, I'm looking at $460. I realize that's higher prices than now. It's maybe a lot of risk in saying that, but my gut tells me $460. I'm going to go with it. Next harvest, $5. If you forward contract now, it's somewhere between $450 and $475, so slightly higher prices.
Okay, Kim Anderson, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. And now a look at how the OSU campus recently welcomed a group of Hispanic 4-H'ers from Tulsa. It's all part of the Juntos program. State 4-H STEM specialist Jeff Salih explains.
Juntos is Spanish for together, and they are a 4-H group out of Tulsa, and they're grant funded. We brought them to campus because we wanted to introduce them to some new things. I don't know what their college and career plans are. I'm sure some of them are college bound, some of them probably aren't. But our goal was to introduce them to some careers, to give them an opportunity to experience college life.
4-H'ers take part in a variety of workshops on campus. We caught up with them in the STEM Bio Lab. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math.
Today we're showing some students how to extract DNA from follicles from horsehair. I was actually breaking down the protocol for them and helping them understand what each step entailed and what exactly they were doing.
I don't think students realize what STEM involves, and a lot of times they get scared about the idea of maybe not being very good at math or science, but once they're able to put those skills into practice, it starts making more sense to them, and they start realizing that they're capable of being involved. And one of the things we pointed out in part of our lecture early on was that they could be a scientist, and so having our graduate students involved in this was a big part of it, to show them that the scientists that are being trained today look just like they do.
High school freshman Luis Esparza says this is his first time on a college campus.
We're trying to see how college life is like. I mean, it's pretty cool. I guess you get to do basically anything you get to do at home. It's just that you basically live at school.
I think it gets them really interested in science. I think it helps them sort of relate to certain things that they may watch on television or video games. I mean, constantly I had a bunch of kids asking me about forensics, like CSI. They watch the show and they're like, is this what they do on the show? And I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what they do. So that kind of helps to get them a little bit more excited. But I think programs like this really help minorities to sort of focus them in on you know, science and math. I don't think really in the Hispanic culture it's really, you know, encouraged, and I think a lot of kids don't feel like they can make it, and I think programs like this really do help.
And now back to the Pontotoc County Fair, where we found a love for horses runs so deep. Pounding hooves, hats, and happy faces. A person can't help but smile watching the Pee-wee pole competition.
This is the Pontotoc County Free Fair Junior Horse Show. And we have most of the events that they have at the State Horse Show and the District Horse Shows. And so this is an event that's open to our Pontotoc County Junior from ages. We actually have Pee-wee divisions we've had some that were 2 years old today up to 18 years old today.
FFA members and 4-H'ers compete, including Cloverbuds, like the brother and sister duo of Landon and Ella Fortner. How'd it go?
Good.
Went good? Okay. How'd your horse do?
Good.
Bullet. Extension educator Justin McDaniel says Pontotoc County's horse community is thriving.
There's a lot of involvement. There's a lot of interest in horses in this county, and so that's what kind of makes this neat. Is we go the full gamut with this show, having English events, Western events, the speed events.
More than 30 events in all, most of which you'll see at the State Horse Show. Landon competed in 4.
Barrels, poles, halter, walk trot.
The volunteers help make it all work. So do the proud moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas.
And not only just connecting with their family, but other families in the county that have a similar interest, because a lot of these parents are rooting just as hard for someone else's kid that's probably competing against their kid as they are for their own children. And so it really makes you feel good when you see that kind of teamwork and that kind of support from parents and grandparents.
There's horsemanship, showmanship, and the experience of getting the job done. A lot of preparation goes into this day.
Feeder and help my dad feed.
But the most fun of all, making memories at the county fair.
These guys are helping each other back here. They're helping each other saddle horses. They're helping each other wash horses. They're helping each other. It's just a time to spend building friendships.
And building family bonds as well. That'll do it for us this week. From the Pontotoc County Fair in Ada, I'm Lyndall Stout. Remember, Oklahoma Ag starts at sunup.